if there's a particular area that we become particularly expert at, what does that everything mean? It basically has three parts. It has information. It has skills, which we might also call the craft. And then it has what we could call the dharma, or the values, or we could call the mood. So if you're going to be teaching something, first of all, you have to know what you're teaching, right? Like, duh, right? If I'm going to teach you mathematics and I don't know mathematics, this is going to be a problem. So I have to know the information. And I also have to know the information about how to be a good teacher. Correct? So we call this pedagogy. So that might be that I can take an exam. That if you gave me an exam, what's good teaching, that I would get a good grade on the exam. I could fill it out. Like if I said to you, please list 10 teaching methods, you could list 10 teaching methods. You would have that information. All right, then there's the skills or the craft. Can I actually use those teaching methods? Do I know how to use them? Do I know when to use them? So, do I know how to use them? Do I know when to use them? I mean, even a skill like being able to write on a board so you can see it and you can read it. Those are skills. To be able to plan a lesson, that's skills. To be able to have what we call good delivery, those are skills. But then what we're looking at today is a little different from either of those. Now, those are both very important, undoubtedly. If you don't have the information about what does it mean to be a good teacher, or you don't have the information about the subject you're teaching, you can't really teach. And if you don't know the skills of teaching, you can't really teach either. And I'm sure that we have all had teachers who were deficient in the information or the skills or both, correct? But what I've been asked to do today is to look at neither of those, but to look at the dharma or the values, the mood of teaching. Now, I'm not going to say this over and over again, but I do want to emphasize that the information and the skills are also important. And I believe that this concept is often missing in our Hare Krishna movement. That people often think if you have the right mood, you have the right values, you have the right dharma, that's enough. Yogakshema Vahamyaham, then Krishna is just going to give you what you lack. But Prabhupada also says God helps those who help themselves. So it's just like if you want to be a good cook for Krishna. So you have to know the information, right? What am I supposed to cook? What are the preps that should be on the Rajbhog? And then you should have the skills. You should actually be able to tell when is the eggplant cooked and how do I puff up a puri. And no matter how good of a devotee you are, if you don't have the information and the skills, you're going to be a terrible cook. Am I correct? Yes? I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands, but I'm sure you've all seen people who are wonderful devotees and terrible cooks. Yeah? I was at this one temple where there was a wonderful devotee who was a terrible cook. Should I tell you what she made? She made avocado halva. Can you imagine that? Avocado halva. And then she made a sabji with red cabbage, boiled sabji, boiled, red cabbage, eggplant, and cooking bananas, boiled together. Nice devotee. She chanted Hare Krishna, I'm sure with a lot of love and devotion. but she didn't have the information and the craft. So having the Dharma and the values is not a substitute for the information and the craft. And I don't know why, in the Hare Krishna movement, we especially think that with teaching, such is the case. Sometimes we think that way with cooking, but not usually for very long, because people will complain about the avocado halva. But somehow with teaching Krishna consciousness, we often tolerate people who don't have any of the information they need to be a good teacher and who have no idea of the craft of teaching. So please keep this in mind, that having the Dharma, the values, and the mood is not a substitute for having the information and the craft of teaching. Is this clear to everybody? I wish it was really clear to everybody in our Hare Krishna movement, because I have seen far too many teachers who don't know how to teach, or who theoretically know how to teach, but they don't actually have the skills, even though their heart is in the right place. Now, having said that, and again, I'm not going to belabor the point, though it's a very important one, just having the information and the craft is not enough. And this is true even if you're a teacher of calculus. Does anybody remember the first principle we talked about yesterday with education? Love. That there be love between the guru and the disciple. And this is true even if you're learning calculus, even if you're learning statistics, even if you're learning auto repair. The teacher should genuinely care about the students. Okay, so I'm going to write down a few things here that we're going to go over. And I want to look at two main areas. One is our relationship with Guru and Krishna, with our Guru, and with Krishna. And then the other would be our relationship with the people we're teaching, right? Our students, our participants. We're going to call them our students. Is that all right? I mean, all of you are my students for this class. You follow? So sometimes I call the people who come participants instead of students. So you're not my students when the class is over, but for right now, you're my students. So is that okay? I can say students? Okay. Okay. So Prabhupada would always emphasize that our relationship with Guru and Krishna has to come first. When the last time I saw Srila Prabhupada was in 1976 in New York. At that time, our oldest son was about 1.5. And he was sitting on my lap. And Prabhupada looked at me and he said, just like this mother is loving her son without any expectation of return, in the same way we should love Krishna. And my father said, will loving her son help her to love Krishna? And Prabhupada said, no, but loving Krishna will help her to love her son. And I've heard many times in the Hare Krishna movement since then, devotees telling me that, you know, your love for your spouse, for your child, for your parents will help you to love Krishna. And I often don't say anything, but I often want to say something and say, no, it doesn't work that way. So we're going to start with Guru and Krishna. So the essence of the mood of a teacher would be what in their relationship with Guru and Krishna? To be a sincere what? It's one of our favorite words in the Hare Krishna movement. Servant. To be a sincere servant. Now, of course, being a servant is not so popular in the world, right? But actually, people who are servants have a mood that's the closest to bhakti. We generally don't think, I want my child to be a servant. We think I want them to be a doctor or a big engineer. But a good servant has a mood that's the closest to bhakti. You are washing someone else's clothes. You are taking pleasure that someone else's clothes are clean. You are painting a picture that hangs in someone else's house. That is the essence of the mood of bhakti. That I am taking pleasure in the happiness of Krishna and his devotees. Yes? So to have a mood of being a servant. Now what does this mean practically? Well, I see that it starts with prayer. So we're going to put that up. Yeah. And that's before every time you teach, and in general. You know, what's my sadhana like? Now, I'm not talking about just ticking off a box. Okay, got my rounds done, got my Gayatri done, did some puja, offered the food, read some Shastra today, okay, good sadhana. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about actually having a real connection. I mean, ticking the boxes, it's good. It's nothing wrong with ticking the boxes, but that's not the whole thing. You follow? It's not just, did I chant 16 rounds today? But am I having a connection with Guru and Krishna? Why am I chanting 16 rounds? Why am I offering my food? Why am I reading the Shastra? If I'm going to be someone's servant, I need to know what they like. Isn't that true? So all of you here, either you have servants or you are a servant. And you know if you have servants, the best servant knows what you like. And if you are a servant, you know that a good servant knows what the person they're serving likes. And that's always different. One person may want these clothes ironed and not these clothes ironed, and someone else wants everything ironed. And someone wants the potatoes cut like this, and someone else wants them cut like this. And you have to know what the person you're serving likes. If someone's been a servant for a long time, I remember one of my aunties, she had this one servant that was in the family for many, many years, and he just knew, you know, what do they like? And when you have a servant who knows what you like, everything is very smooth and pleasant. You don't have to say anything at all, in fact. You just, oh, Hare Krishna, nice to see you. And they just know what to do. And Prabhupada says the first-class servant can know what to do even without being told. They can watch and understand. So our prayer really connects us. When we are chanting our japa, when we are chanting our Gayatri, when we are chanting in the kirtan, when we are practicing slokas, when we are reading the Shastra, we are trying to do that to understand the mind and the heart of Guru and Krishna. We should not be doing just some kind of a ritualistic thing. Now, I know that it's difficult to keep up that kind of intensity and that kind of connection day after day. I know that. Even in our human relationships, it can be difficult. We can end up in some ritualistic behavior with our spouse, with our children, with our parents, with our employees, our employers, where we lose the connection. Okay, I'm driving my kids to school. And it just becomes something ritualized. But to really have the mood of a teacher, first we have to have the mood of a servant. First we have to have the mood, basically, of a student. I remember one devotee saying that he was out on book distribution and he met some young man who said, "Oh yes, I also have a guru." And, "Oh, who is your guru?" "Oh, so-and-so." "Oh, who's his guru?" "Oh, I don't know. I don't think he has a guru." And this devotee was saying, if you say, "I'm a guru," without a guru, you think you're God. Of course, even God has a guru, ostensibly. Sandipani Muni, and so forth. But I have to be first a student. Then also a desire to teach in such a way that I will be representing Guru and Krishna. Now, to do this, one really has to understand what is Krishna's mood, what is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mood. We talked about having a teaching mood. What is their mood? And that may sound very simple and obvious, and you're, okay, I know this. But it's not, actually. I've spent quite a lot of time and energy and thought and care in trying to understand what is Srila Prabhupada's mood, as distinct from, say, the mood of some of his godbrothers, who may be as devoted and as Krishna conscious and as pure, but they had a different mood. What was Prabhupada's mood? I'll give you a very simple example. So, Srila Prabhupada translated the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam in the 1960s. Okay? The 1960s. And he had us sell this book to everybody and anybody. And I literally mean anybody and everybody. Am I correct? Srila Prabhupada had a summary study of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that again he translated in the 1960s, and we were selling this book to anybody and everybody. So Prabhupada has these statements, you have to read through the first 9 cantos of the Bhagavatam before you can read the 10th canto. But please believe me that we did not go to people in the airports and the train stations and the parking lots and say, "Excuse me, have you read the whole first 9 cantos of the Bhagavatam?" In fact, that wasn't even translated. Srila Prabhupada translated the 10th canto before he translated the 2nd canto. When I joined the Hare Krishna movement, there was the 1st canto, 1 or 2 chapters of the 2nd canto, and Krishna book, and Nectar Devotion, and Bhagavad Gita, of course. He came out with Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which is a summary of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And if you read Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which I did again recently, it contains the very elevated subject matter that's in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It doesn't have things from Anchalila, end of Anchalila, but it has, the talks with Ramananda Roy are very elevated subject matter. And Srila Prabhupada had this distributed widely. However, he always interwove philosophy. You will never, ever, ever find that Srila Prabhupada just talks about Leela. He doesn't do it. He just doesn't do it. Especially Madhurya Bhav. Especially. But even Cowherd Boy Leela, he doesn't just talk about Leela. He's always interweaving philosophy. Now, by the way, our previous acharyas don't do this. We have many, many literatures written by Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, Srila Rupa Goswami, Srila Sanatana Goswami, etc., Srila Jiva Goswami, that are just Leela. No philosophy at all. Nothing that Krishna is God even. Not a word. You open the book and you're right in Leela, and generally Madhurya Leela, and nothing that Krishna is God. Nothing. You're not this body, Krishna is God. It's absent. Why? They were writing for a very different audience, weren't they? They were not writing for the people in the airports of 2023. I mean, we didn't even ask people if they were vegetarians. We didn't say, before you get this Krishna book, do you eat non-veg? Do you drink alcohol? Nothing. So thinking like, what is Srila Prabhupada's mood? Srila Prabhupada's mood was to give the highest philosophy. Is Ramanand Sanvad, is that the highest philosophy? I think so. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says it is, so I'm just going to believe him. The highest philosophy to everybody, but mixed with explanation. So this is just one example of Srila Prabhupada's mood. And that's not the mood of his various godbrothers and various people, and the Gaudiya Math split after the disappearance of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. But it's not the mood, it's Prabhupada's own mood. And it's a mood that Srila Prabhupada had that was perfectly suited to having a worldwide movement, to preaching in Brazil and Russia and China and everywhere. Or even in India, to Hindus who didn't know anything about their own tradition and were coming with so many misconceptions. Another part of Srila Prabhupada's mood was having Diksha where everyone took a vow to chant 16 rounds. This is actually very unusual in the Gaudiya Sampradaya. Other parts of our Sampradaya, people don't take vows at Diksha, and how many rounds people chant is individual. Could you imagine if Prabhupada did that? And so many people would say, well, I'll just chant one round. So Prabhupada had his own particular mood. And if we're going to teach, we need to understand his mood. Of course, we also have to understand the mood of our previous acharyas, Srila Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Srila Jiva Goswami. We also have to understand what's their mood, what's their desire, and ultimately what's the desire of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. How he's saying, Lord Chaitanya is saying, I've come to give the highest level of spontaneous love of God. And we need to put that together with how Lord Chaitanya wants to give spontaneous love of God, and Srila Prabhupada is presenting this always mixed with philosophy, how we're not this body, Krishna's God. Is everybody following me? So if we don't have proper sadhana, we will not be able to have the proper mood, and we will not be able to be a representative. We will change things. We want to be a via media. Prabhupada always says, Guru is via media. Again, we don't have to be some big ISKCON authorized Diksha Guru. If we're teaching anybody, we should want to be a via media. We should want Krishna and Srila Prabhupada, we want Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, our acharyas, to speak through us. In order to do that, I have to have a connection. I have to connect through my daily sadhana, and I have to connect through a deep sadhana where I really try to understand their personal mood. And then they will act through me. And my dear friends, I think I would suggest that there's nothing sweeter than being Krishna's instrument and being Guru's instrument. Materially, that's a very horrible thing if someone's using me as their instrument for their own purpose. Someone's using me for their own purposes. It's actually kind of dirty and not nice at all. But when Krishna's using us, when our acharyas are using us, when Srila Prabhupada is using us, It's amazing. Now that's true whether we're washing the pots or cutting the carrots or cleaning the floor or anything we're doing where we're being used as an instrument. That is when we experience absolutely the highest pleasure possible. Anandam Buddhivardhanam. We're finite beings, and when we're in touch, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati says, with the infinite, we also feel infinite happiness. But although on one level every service is equal, and it doesn't matter whether you're teaching the Shastra or you're cleaning the floor, still Krishna says, there's no servant more dear to me than one who is teaching this message. So especially when we are teaching and we are empowered, especially, it's incredible, that experience. Yes, we've learned the information. Yes, we've learned our craft. We've done our part. We need to do that too. Arjuna did practice how to fight. He didn't just say, oh, just Hare Krishna and I won't practice. He practiced a lot, didn't he? Practice at night. He was expert. Something of everything and everything of something. But Krishna acted through him. He said, this fight is already decided. You are simply an instrument. It is exhilarating. And the more that we feel that Krishna's using us, Guru's using us, all of our acharyas are using us, the more exhilarated we feel. We know we're not acting in our own power. And our own power, my dear friends, is very small. We have like the battery power of a telephone. But we want to light up the world. You cannot light up the world with a telephone. But if I'm a conduit for Guru and Krishna, then I can light up the world. Isn't that amazing? We're just a jiva. We're just a jiva, but with that conduit. But we have to know. Okay. So one very practical way that we do this, how can you tell? So one way you can tell So that's a very practical way that you can tell. If we're speaking on Shastra, we speak on Shastra. If the verse we're speaking on, the purport we're speaking on is on a topic, we speak on that topic. We don't say, oh, now I have this chair, now I have this microphone, I'm going to read the verse and then put it aside and then I'm going to say what I want to say. That's not servant. Does this make sense? Prabhupada taught like this, Srila Jiva Goswami taught like this, but I'm going to just throw it all out and do something that they wouldn't approve of. And I've seen this many times. So many times. You know, someone's teaching and I'm thinking, Prabhupada would never. Of course, we have to adjust for the audience. That we must do. But keeping that mood. And like Prabhupada said, if you want to present your own philosophy, write your own book. Don't use Bhagavad Gita to present your own philosophy. He would say that many times. This is Vyasadev's seat. It's not Urmila's seat. You follow? You understand? This is the Vyasa son. It belongs to Vyasadeva. And one must simply be there as a servant. One should give one's own realization. That's part of being a servant. But not thinking, again, oh, I have this platform, now I can say whatever I like. I have something I want to tell everybody, so This also means some trust that if there's something people need to hear and it's not in that verse and it's not in that purport, Krishna will have some other way of letting them know. Okay. I'm sure we could talk a lot more about how to be a proper servant of Guru and Krishna and how to connect with Guru and Krishna as a teacher. But I want to go on now to how we're going to connect to our students. Again, first we have to connect to Guru and Krishna before I can connect to the students. I have to have that right first. Yeah? Okay. So what are we going to do? So, if I'm really going to serve my students, I don't want to just dump information on them. I want the people I'm teaching to experience bhakti while I'm teaching them. Hearing is an item of bhakti. People should experience something of Krishna, some transformation during the class. And that should continue on after the class. There should be some change in them. After all, that's what everybody wants. Everybody wants to experience something transcendent. Even materialists are looking for that. Maybe they're looking for it in the best coffee or the best pizza or something. But everyone's looking for some kind of transformational experience. Something that they can use. Something that helps them to become the best version of themselves and to experience happiness in life and fulfillment and success. So if I'm really serving my students, I should be teaching for that. Yes, I may need to give them some information. But if the main point of what I'm teaching is just giving information, for goodness sakes, hand them a piece of paper and let them read it and go home. You understand? We don't need to memorize a whole bunch of Sanskrit terms and learn this and that, because that's not the test. It's not that for going back to Godhead, you're going to have to fill out a multiple choice exam on trivia. That's just not what's going to happen, you know. We were reading yesterday about Nanda and Sunanda picking up Dhruva Maharaj. You know, Nanda and Sunanda come in their airplane and say, okay, who is the fifth Manu? Come on. Sorry, can't get in the airplane. It's not the reality. The reality is yam yam vapi saram bhamam. What's dear to us? I want to teach in a way that people fall in love with Krishna. That they experience Krishna. That they experience how wonderful Krishna is. Somehow or other, they should experience it while I'm giving the class. And then I should be giving them tools that they can use to keep experiencing Krishna after the class. Because Krishna is wonderful. And Krishna's devotees, our previous acharyas, Srila Prabhupada, our present great devotees in our Hare Krishna movement. And my dear friends, there's a lot of great devotees right now in our Hare Krishna movement. Not everyone in our Hare Krishna movement is a great devotee. That's true. But we have many, many very great devotees in our Hare Krishna movement. And we should have that experience of that is wonderful. So when I'm planning my lessons, What am I going to teach? How am I going to teach? Now again, tonight I'm not teaching you the craft of teaching. I was asked to teach the mood, not the craft. So I'm not teaching you the craft. I'm not teaching you how to plan a lesson, although I could certainly. But when you're doing that, your whole focus should be, what's going to be transformational? What's going to hit people's hearts? What kind of experience are they going to have? Are they going to feel connected? Are they going to get tools to connect? Are they going to want to connect? Are they going to come out of the class going, oh, I really want to connect with Krishna. I really want to serve Krishna. And not through some sort of cheap manipulative tactic, but through my having a connection with Krishna. And really caring whether or not they end up with that. Now, this is something that I wish more people would be aware of and do. And I'm not sure if I'm hitting that tonight or not. I've just figured that because this class was advertised as the mood of teaching, that if you're sitting here, that's what you want. And if that's not what you want, I don't know why you're sitting here, because that's what I'm doing tonight. But I was recently, this is being recorded, so I want to be a little careful, but I was recently in one country where a devotee had spent, I don't know how many hours. I mean, I do PowerPoints myself, so I'm guessing it was at least 20 to 30 hours, maybe more, putting together this beautiful presentation. Absolutely beautiful, so professionally done. So, the pictures, the audio, everything was so first class, about Srila Prabhupada having visited that part of the world. And it basically showed the timeline, what dates was Srila Prabhupada in this city, what dates was he in this city, and what class did he give, and there was a little audio of the class he gave there. I was just so well done, but hardly anyone went to that class. And that teacher perhaps made the mistake, I don't know, of saying, Urmila, would you please come to the class and critique it? I'm not sure if he was happy that he asked me that. But anyway, that's what he asked me to do. And after the class, he said, so would you please give me your critique? And I'm like, Prabhu, are you sure you want my critique? I said, it was a beautiful class, but who cares? I said, who cares? Why should I care what date Srila Prabhupada was in that city and what class he gave in that city? What does it matter? I said, Prabhu, I listen to a Prabhupada lecture every single day. I turn on my phone and there's a Prabhupada lecture. Why do I have to come sit in your class to listen to a little bit of, this is what Prabhupada said here, this is what Prabhupada said there? So what? He said, well, I think it's really interesting. And I said, okay. You know, for 30 years I was an editor of Back to Godhead, and one of the types of articles that we regularly refused was about some local event, some big local festival, and it would have all these names of the local devotees and what they did. Now, if you lived there and you knew all these people, it would be very interesting. Or sometimes, you know, we have performances put on by very, very small children. And they're interesting for the parents and the teachers, and they're interesting for those who know the children, and for everybody else, they're not interesting at all. Am I correct? Yes? So this is very tricky here. We want to teach in such a way that people feel that their actual needs are being met. Now we know that if someone takes up Krishna consciousness, all their needs will be met. But most people don't wake up in the morning thinking, I really want to fall in love with Krishna. I'm even going to go so far as to say that most devotees don't wake up in the morning thinking that. I think most devotees wake up in the morning thinking, oh my God, I got to get my kid to school, and oh, I have that bill I have to pay, and how am I going to have time to chant my rounds? And these are the kind of things that I think most devotees wake up thinking about, rather than, am I falling in love enough with Krishna? You know, when I was very new in the Hare Krishna movement and I was selling back to Godheads at the airport, and then we didn't have any real saris and dhotis from India in those days. So we would just go to the fabric store and buy some saffron-colored poly-cotton cloth. It was very thick, and so to keep it on our head, we had to put a pin here, and the pin would move like this. And then we had big nose rings. I mean, nowadays it's popular to have piercings, but it wasn't then. And we had these great big nose rings, you know, sorry, I'm like this. And these big nose rings. And with just a Back to Godhead magazine, and running up to people in the airport saying, here, would you like to read this about love of God? Later we became a little bit more intelligent in our book distribution. So you want to teach in a way that connects with what people are feeling right now are their needs. So that people are going to think, what's this? Oh, I want to hear more. I want this. I need this. I got what I needed. Now, this formula is particularly tricky when teaching children, because most children are in the class not because they want to be there, but because someone else wants them to be there. So like with all of you, you knew it was advertised, the mood of teaching, and so I'm assuming that you said, I want to know about the mood of teaching, so I didn't start off trying to motivate you. You follow? I mean, I did say to that one fellow who only spoke Bangla, what are you doing here? You don't have to stay, it's okay, you can go. But I'm assuming with adults, when there's an advertised class on a particular topic, they're already coming hungry. You follow? And if any of you don't teach anybody anything, I don't know what you're doing here, but with children, it's not like that. With children, someone else is saying, you have to go. They don't want to be there. I don't know any child who says, I really want to know the difference between an adverb phrase and an adjective phrase. I've never met such a child. Oh, what is the area of a cylinder? I just can't stop thinking about it. And so if we open the class with, I'm going to teach you the differences between adjective and adverb phrases, the kids will not go, yes, yes. But this same problem can operate when I'm trying to teach children Krishna consciousness. Okay, everybody, today we're going to learn the story of Dhruva Maharaj. Sit down. They didn't wake up in the morning going, I really want to know more about it. It's just not what's happening with them. So to have a mood, and again, I'm sorry, I'm not teaching the craft of how to do this today, but to at least have this mood that I want to connect what I'm teaching to what people really care about. Because if we believe, at least theoretically, that learning about Krishna consciousness will in fact meet everyone's needs, at least if we believe that as a philosophical construct, then we should be able to make that connection for others, starting with what they actually care about. So we start with what they care about. Would you like to get along better with your brothers and sisters? Would you like to get along better with your parents? Would you like that new toy in the store? So we start with that. What are people really concerned about? Would you like to be able to have a peaceful life no matter how much money you have in the bank? Whew. That's the kind of thing that people really care about. Am I right? Yes? And then to move from there to how they can find a solution in Krishna. And again, I'm not teaching you how to do that tonight, but the mood that we want to do that. that we want to relate to people where they are. That we care about where they are. You know, when you get directions to someplace, you not only need to know where you're going, you also need to know your current location. I cannot give you accurate directions if I don't know your current location. You always have to start from there. And this, my dear friends, it is a craft, it is a skill, but is also a mood. And when we don't have this mood, I'm sorry, but it's arrogance. If I think everyone's going to be interested in something just because I'm interested in it, or because I know what you ultimately need, I'm going to try to force that on you. And if you don't like it and you don't accept it, there's something wrong with you. No, there's something wrong with me as a teacher if I try to give the ultimate thing to someone who's in anxiety about something else. And the last thing that last two things I'm going to look at, I'm running out of time, is to be what we call a multiplier. There's some really good books on this topic. How to be a multiplier and not a diminisher. How to make your students feel smart and capable. And again, there's a whole craft to this. If someone's struggling and you tell them, that's easy, why are you struggling? How are they going to feel? Smart or stupid? Stupid. If you ask them a question and they don't answer it immediately and you just tell them the answer, how are they going to feel? Smart or stupid? So there's a craft to this of how you can act in such a way that the people you're teaching will feel capable rather than incapable. And this, of course, goes back to our mood as a servant and our own feeling of humility. If I'm arrogant, then I just want all my students to think that I'm very intelligent. If I really have the mood of a servant, I'm going to want my students to feel that they are intelligent and they are capable. And again, once again, I'm not teaching you exactly how to do that, but at least to have the mood that you want to do that. You want to make your students feel intelligent. Now, this is particularly challenging when they're acting very unintelligent. And so we're going to go to the last thing here. Now, when I was looking back at my notes, I found that I taught this in Bahrain as a whole class. I had a whole class on being patient while teaching. So I'm not going to teach this, obviously, it's almost 9 o'clock, as a whole class. But I'm just going to go through it very briefly. So what do we mean by patience? We mean that we're willing to wait happily. And that we trust others. We trust that if I wait, they'll get it. They'll be able to pick it up. When I'm patient, I avoid my own anger and frustration. I improve my relationship with my students. Again, it shows some humility. It shows some tolerance. And it's one of the points that Srila Rupa Goswami says is required for spiritual advancement. Now, if I'm not patient with the people that I'm teaching, then they're going to be put under stress. Do you know that nobody learns when they're under stress? Did you know that? You might be able to learn superficially so you can pass an exam, but you're not going to really learn. Do you know why? When we're afraid, or we're stressed, our body is prepared to run away from tigers, not to learn calculus. You follow? Krishna didn't design our bodies when there's, a pack of dogs growling to sit down and talk about philosophy. When we're under some kind of psychological or physical stress, like Prabhupada said, if people are hungry, they can't hear philosophy. if people are very tired, if the room is too hot, the room is too cold, or if I'm making people feel stupid, or if I'm impatient with them. Physiologically, their ability to learn is going to decrease. So this means being patient. Now, some of us have an easier time being patient than others. Some of us are naturally patient people, and some of us are not. I'm not a naturally patient person at all. I'm a very results-oriented, I want it yesterday kind of person. So how in the world do I get myself to be patient? So if I say, Urmila, you have to be patient, I'm like, no! Doesn't work. So what I tell myself is something that has worked for me very well. I say, Urmila, do you want these students to learn this? Oh yes, very much. Okay, what are you willing to do to get them to learn it? Anything. Okay, are you willing to find 100,000 ways, different ways to teach this 100,000 times? Oh yes. That's the same thing as patience. You follow? You understand? So if like me, you struggle with patience, you can always trick your psychology. Yeah? So to expect that different people take different amounts of time to learn something. What may be easy for me to learn may be hard for someone else, and conversely, I may struggle with something that's easy for someone else. This is true across the board. And that different people learn in different ways. If somebody's not learning something in one way, for goodness sakes, try a different way. Don't keep trying something that's not working. Make sure you have breaks. I've been to some classes that go on for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. Prabhupada said teach 50, 60 minutes and then have a break. Give people breaks. If you're teaching children and a child is unusually ill-behaved, they're probably hungry, tired, sick, or there's some emotional disturbance going on in their lives. And often the same is true for adults. Make sure that you have proper physical facility. Make sure you know a variety of teaching techniques. And trust that people will learn in their own rate at their own way. So we've gone over a lot about the mood of teaching. This is the dharma of being a teacher. Actually, the ultimate dharma of being a teacher is that you will be willing to sacrifice anything for the sake of truth. That you are willing to sacrifice anything for the sake of truth. That is the ultimate dharma of being a teacher. And we talked about the mood between us and our teachers, God and our gurus. We have to start with that, and then the mood with our students. And by the way, our students are also often our gurus. I have learned much from my students. Just because someone is my student doesn't mean that they're less spiritually advanced than I am, and doesn't mean that they have nothing to teach me. So one has this mood of a servant. So I hope that this was helpful. Probably you all knew all this already. But anyway, I hope that this was helpful. So anyone has questions, comments, additions, subtractions, chastisements? And I think tomorrow we're doing career dharma, yes? So that I'll need a projector and screen. We have our tech person here. Mic working? Very good.
Hare Krishna.
And tomorrow we're going to do another slide. Yes.
Two questions.
Yes.
One is that you said Prabhupada used to combine philosophy with Leela.
Always.
So did he imbibed the mood of his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj also used to do the same thing?
Very much so. But you will find that that's not what Srila Rupa Goswami, Srila Sanatana Goswami, Srila Jiva Goswami did. And then you might say, well, why did Prabhupada do that? Because Prabhupada was preaching to different people. Now, they also did that, but not always. You know, our acharyas wrote treatises that were just philosophy, practically. Very little lila, if you think of the Sandarbhas, for example. So they also did that. But they didn't always mix it. But Srila Prabhupada always mixed. Always. Consistently. And my own humble realization is that I don't want to dare not do that. I don't want to, would they say fools rush in where angels fear to tread? You know, I don't want to dare and say, well, Raghunath Das Goswami did it, so I can do it. I'm like, no, maybe if you're just sitting like Raghunath Das Goswami at Radhakund, and there's 3 people there and there's no recording, then that's another thing. But for the public, and not only did he mix, but I also want to emphasize that he gave the highest. Prabhupada wasn't miserly about giving the highest knowledge to everybody. Right from the beginning. Right from the beginning. It's not that he only talked about Varnashram and then later he said, oh, by the way, there's also Srimati Radharani. He gave from the very beginning the highest, but always mixed with philosophy. Always. To keep, so there'd be no, you cannot, I mean, I suppose you could, but I think it would be very difficult to read Krishna book and come out with a wrong understanding of Krishna and Krishna Lila. I suppose you could if you were really determined. But do you agree? Prabhupada's written Krishna book, Nectar Devotion. He wrote these books so that you almost have to have the right understanding. So that, I would beg you, please, follow this of Srila Prabhupada. Please, 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 please. Don't think you're Raghunath Das Goswami. Especially not in a big public event, recorded, or printed and distributed. Is that all right?
Yes, Mataji. And the other one is that regarding the 3 things, the knowledge, skills and values. So we think is the statement that if you have the right mood, then automatically the knowledge and skills will follow. Is it right? Or if one has the purity,
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Krishna will bless you with the information slowly and the skills, even though you don't have them. Because people have knowledge and skills,
they think
but
like
that. But they don't have the mood to teach. They don't have the right mood.
Okay, but you need all 3. And again, what was my example? I gave an example. What was the example I gave? Cooking. The cook who had the right mood and made avocado halva. Krishna didn't give her the right recipes. She had to open the cookbook. Hare Krishna, I just put anything in the pot. Doesn't work like that. What was the other example I gave? Yeah. But Arjuna. Didn't Arjuna practice his skills? Yes or no? How much did Arjuna practice? What did he do to practice? What did Arjuna do to practice? He got up at night. He got up at night and he was practicing shooting in the dark. Did he say, oh, I'm Krishna's friend, I'm a pure devotee, I'll just, I got the right mood. I got the right mood. I'll just go on the battlefield and just, hey, Krishna. Sorry. So no, and in fact, that's one of the principles of education. That's the last one that we talked about yesterday, is being expert. And Prabhupada specifically said there, I don't have the quote here right in front of me, but he specifically said, don't think that because you're a Krishna conscious person, you shouldn't know anything of the world and you shouldn't have expertise. So we often preach this, but this is rubbish. If you're chanting Hare Krishna, you're going to drive a car without lessons? I hope not. If I really am connected with Krishna, I'm going to want to be. Daksha is one of the 26 qualities of a devotee. I'm going to want to be expert, aren't I? Right? You also have to do something. You want him to put the Zakangshal on your head. Okay, Dhruva was 5 years old, Prabhu. Are you 5? He was 5. He hadn't gone to school yet. He didn't have a chance. And he's like, I want to pray, I don't know how. And Krishna says, okay. Should I tell you a story? Should I tell you a story? It's a story about me. But should I tell you a story? Okay. So generally I prepare for my classes. Generally. Some of my classes I spend months preparing for. Most I spend minutes or hours. Some weeks. Depends. But generally I prepare for my classes. But sometimes you can't because you don't know you're going to be giving a class. And someone just says, would you like to give a class now? Or they just say, you are giving a class now. So I was in Vrindavan, and I was teaching at the VIHE. I was teaching Bhakti Vaibhava, and those classes, every 2 hours of class, I had to do 4 hours of prep for those classes. So I had been teaching in the morning and the afternoon, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, and I was finished, and I was mentally done. You understand? I mean, I was happy, but I was mentally tired. So I'm walking back from the VIG, and some devotees stop me, and they say, Urmila, we'd like to invite you. It's Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj's disappearance anniversary today, and we'd like to invite you to the celebration. When is it? Right now in the Krishna Balaram Hall. And because I was tired, it was the end of the day, I didn't think they were going to ask me to speak. I just didn't cross my mind. I thought I'll just sit in the audience. So I just walk in, and I sit down and I'm listening. And then they said, you please speak. I'm like, what? I had literally no time to do anything, and I was tired. I was mentally tired. And I didn't have even, I mean, if I have at least 30 seconds, I can plan something. But I didn't even have 30 seconds, and I just went, Krishna! Help! Conch shell on the head, please. And he did. I gave the best class I've ever given in my entire life. I mean, it was only 10 minutes long, but it was amazing. And I felt like I wasn't giving it. I kept feeling like I was in the audience watching and listening to myself. And I would say things, and I thought, wow, that was really cool. Oh my goodness. This should be recorded. I could use this as an example of the best way to give a class. Nobody's recording this. I mean, this was going on. Like I was just the observer. And I was just like, Krishna was just, it was amazing experience. Just amazing. It was only like a 10-minute class, and I sat down and I'm like, whoa. So after the event, these devotees from Manipur who had organized it, they came up to me and said, can you come to Manipur and teach? And I'm thinking, I'm not going to be able to do that again. So, I mean, when we can't prepare, when we genuinely can't prepare. I hope that story was okay. That was amazing. It was such an incredible experience. But see, I couldn't just do that tonight. I couldn't say, okay, Krishna, they've asked me to speak on the mood of teachings. I'm just going to come in and you just do the conch shell thing again, okay? He's going to say no. You follow? He's going to say, no, where were you? We have to do our part. That's love. If I love Srila Prabhupada, if I love Krishna, I'm going to do my part. I have to show up. I have to, if I really care about the people I'm teaching and I really care about my guru, then I'm going to become expert in the craft. And I'm going to do my part. Yeah? That's with everything. If I'm going to make dresses for the deities, I'm going to have to study tailoring. I'm going to have to study fabrics. I have to know something about what I'm doing. I don't know why we think if I preach about Krishna, I don't need to do that. It's quite funny. Of course, Yogakshema Vahamyaham, he's going to give you opportunities. He's going to put you in touch with the right people to teach you. He's going to put you in touch with the right books or the right courses. He's going to give you intelligence, but you have to do your part. Like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, if someone's stuck in the bottom of a well and you throw them a rope, they have to hold it. You have to do something. Yeah, I'm so glad you brought this up. All right, it is now 9:12. Okay, and this last one. Yes.
Hare Krishna Mataji, that was such a wonderful class. Mataji, now we deal with children who are in 9th standard and 14, 15, 16 age, and they are so much into so many distractions. So such children are already into a higher platform, like they are enjoying the game life. And to them, how is our approach going to be?
Oh, this is not something I can answer in like 2 minutes. But just briefly, you have to connect with their real needs. If you're trying to teach them what you think they need or what you know they ultimately need, but that they don't know they need it and they're not aware that they need it, you will fail. You have to connect with their felt needs. And they have to see how studying what you want to teach them will help them to achieve what they want to achieve. And gradually they'll come to want to achieve Krishna consciousness for its own sake. But you can't start with that. Think about in the Bhagavatam itself, all of those verses at the end of the stories. The most is at the end of Maharaj Prithu. The Stutipala, you know, there's what you get. And you get things like, you know, you'll have a good child. You'll conquer a kingdom. Why does the Bhagavatam do that? This is the Bhagavatam. Dharma Projita Kaitavatra. Still, the Bhagavatam is saying, if you study this story, you'll defeat your enemies. Because that's what people care about. Do you follow? Yes? Think about how Kasyapa made Diti into a devotee. She said, I want to kill Indra, who was her stepson and nephew, by the way, the child of her husband, by her sister. I want to kill Indra. Oh yes, very good. Just do this. And what was this? It was being a Vaishnavi. And gradually, as she was doing these things, Kasyapa told her, she lost the desire to kill Indra. But he started with that. Start where they are. Where are they? What are their concerns? What are they stressed about? What would they like to achieve? Start with that. And if you can't connect Krishna consciousness with that, there's a problem, because Krishna consciousness will ultimately help everybody with any problem that they have. Is that philosophically correct? At least we agree with that in theory. So as a teacher, you have to show how it's true. Is that all right?